To your question, how do we keep young people in New Hampshire? And that's a big problem. The demographics right now are such that we have fewer and fewer high school graduates each year in this state. And the average age of our population continues to go up. And we're really developing a serious problem 5 to 10 years out when we don't have enough young people here to grow the economy and to support the state. So we've got to try to keep them here. So in the business college at UNH, about half the students come in from out of state. They're from Massachusetts primarily, but also from some other states. The rest are New Hampshire residents. And I think it's absolutely critical that we keep the students here for their higher education, whether it's community college or university or some other higher education. Keeping them here, we raise the probability that they'll stay in the state for that first job, right? About 40 to 45% of the business college graduates at UNH take their first job in New Hampshire. Many of them want to stay here if those jobs are available. Many of them go out of state. They might want to get away. That does happen when you're 22 years old. I've been in New Hampshire all my life. I want to do something different. My 22-year-old says he's going somewhere west. He just wants out of New England for a while. All right, but come back, and I think he will. So I think the first step is keeping young people in our state for their higher education and attracting others if we can. Maybe that Massachusetts student will decide to take the first job in New Hampshire, and then we can bring some brains into our state rather than just letting them go. But I think the key in keeping young people here is providing the right opportunities for them. Are there enough jobs, enough entry-level jobs for college graduates? And that's one of the problems we have in our state. Many small and mid-sized companies can't afford to hire that new college graduate because they're not quite ready to go. You've got to train them, bring them along a little bit, and the larger companies are better at that. So Fidelity and Liberty and BAE and others will hire a large number of graduates, but the small and mid-sized companies don't. Now, at my hotel, we do. We hire the graduates. We're able to train them and bring them along. But the key is an environment that grows an economy, so you can get more jobs and provide more opportunity for young people. So you do that with a good tax structure. You do it with good infrastructure, good education system, and the resources that companies need in terms of people. And if you do those 4 things, you'll be in a pretty good spot. I think the backbone of the American economy is education and infrastructure. And we're falling behind on both of those, particularly education in the K-12 and the infrastructure. We've got to do better there, and we've got to be smart in our investments, or we won't be able to attract business. So what's New Hampshire need to do? We need to get some infrastructure investment in here. We know that. We absolutely know that. And in Congress, you can help with that. Help to get the right investments in infrastructure, not stimulus spending, right? Not just throwing money at projects, but again, a thoughtful allocation of resources to the areas where we can have an impact that's positive for business. I think that's the answer for New Hampshire. Sorry, it was a long-winded answer, but I'm pretty passionate about that. Yes, sir?
Do you support a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants?
No. No. Next. Yes, sir.
Since you own a hotel, I'm actually having a discussion with Russ McLaren about, in the hall the other day, the minimum wage, this income equality, minimum wage issue. How would that affect your hotel business?
Actually, it wouldn't. Not a single position that we will have on opening day, April 14th, will be at minimum wage. In fact, I was thinking about it during the drive over, and I think our lowest wage will be around $12 an hour. So it won't impact us, but it does impact a lot of companies in the hospitality business. That's an important business here in New Hampshire, and I think we've got to be careful in how we approach the minimum wage. I'm a states' rights guy, so in the ideal world, my ideal world, the states make the decision about their minimum wage, and we're seeing many states doing that. But the wage that's right for the North Country in New Hampshire is probably very different from the wage that's right in Peter County District. Right? So a federal minimum wage to me isn't the best solution, although it looks like we're going to have one that goes up. So how do you address this? I think, it makes sense to go back and look at the minimum wage. Where did it start? Where would it be if we indexed it for inflation today? And to try to bring some rational thinking to it, rather than just throw a number out there and say, well, it ought to be 10-10, or it ought to be 15, or whatever. I think the approach we might take here in New Hampshire isn't a bad one. Let's bring it up to what would appear to be an appropriate level and then index it somewhat, so we're not constantly revisiting this. And again, it gives companies an ability to predict where their costs are going to go. Right now, I mean, if you're looking at an increase from 7.25 to 10.10, that's a huge increase. My youngest son works at Bull Moose Music, and he's making $8 an hour, and there are 4 of them on duty. So if those wages go from $8 to $10 an hour, what's Bull Moose going to do? They're going to cut one of them. So then you've got a high school or college student who's trying to pay his or her way through school, who can't, trying to get some experience on their resume, they can't, and we end up really hurting people who need help, and that's not the right answer either. Others? Yes, sir.
I'd just like to make more of a comment right along with what you said. 4 years ago, we had an office set up over in Derry, and a Polish fellow came by, and he said he'd been over here for 20 years, and he said how if we're not careful, we're going to end up just like he was 20 years ago over there, because he says it started out the same way.
Yeah.
He also made a comment, and he was really upset. He says, it takes a lot of intelligence, guts, and integrity to create wealth.
Yes.
And he said it takes nothing but a lack of conscience just to take it from someone else.
Yeah.
And that's something that's stuck in my mind.
Yeah.
This is someone who has really lived it.
Yeah.
And say it's coming down and see how it's happening.
If we don't make the right decision soon, it'll be hard to turn back.
Yeah.
But what it's true about guts, I'm scared to death of this hotel.
I
I hope the heck it works. So, yes, sir.
Thank you. I want your take on Common Core and on the educational side of things.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan. I understand the principle behind it. When I think about education, as many issues, I believe in local control. And I think we know what's best for our children. And the example that I use, and it makes a lot of sense to me, is the whole world will tell you the best higher education system in the world is in America. We have built the best higher education system. And guess what? The feds don't get involved. They don't monkey around with our curriculum. They don't tell us what to do. It's decided by the people who are doing it, the faculty, the staff. Some cases the states have some involvement depending on the state. But it's a local control, and we've built the best thing in the world. K-12, the feds have gotten increasingly involved over the years, and every time they get more involved, test scores go down, performance goes down. And there is little accountability in the K-12 schools. But we have some accountability at the universities, right? And you've got to bring that to bear. I think Common Core, in terms of general guidelines, might be okay, but I don't think it should be forced on us. I think individual districts should make that decision for themselves, and the government needs to stay out of our local education decisions. Absolutely needs to stay out. Maybe one more? There's another?
One more in defense.
Pardon me?
How about defense?
In terms of foreign policy, or in terms of spending, or all of that? Foreign policy. Our problem with foreign policy, and the congressman hit on it, is that, well, for one thing, it's squishy. We determine our foreign policy reaction based on the day of the week, right? And you don't really know where the president will be. In Syria, he drew a line, and then he decided, well, the heck with the line, I forgot about it. And, Putin then gets energized, right? He solves the Syria problem, sort of. And now, well, lo and behold, right after the Olympics, Ukraine looks like a fun place to play. And he knows that we're not going to do anything. We won't come to your meeting. Oh, wow. Okay. That's really great. So the point is, the president doesn't apply a consistent set of values to his foreign policy. It's just whatever happens. And he always apologizes for who we are and what we are. We cannot do that. We are the greatest country in the world. We have a good value system. I think Congressman King is right. We need to be strong. We need to make strong stands. We don't need to be the world's policeman, but we won't have to be if everyone knows our positions and knows what we will do, and that we will stick to our word when we say something. And I think if we do that, we'll be in a good place. On defense, we've got to be wise with our investments in defense. I think cutting back the troops too much would be a bad move. We're spread pretty thin now. What the military is saying, and the Secretary of Defense is saying, is, military actions are changing. We're becoming more technologically based and a little less personnel based. I get that, and there is some point there. But I think we got to be real careful in dialing back troops too much. And we've got to have enough troops in reserve and ready to go should something develop. Something like the Ukraine that escalates out of control and starts heading into Eastern Europe. You don't know what Putin will do. And we've got to be able to respond to that. I think we're in a place today where we can, but if we bring our troops back to pre-World War II levels, I'm not sure about that. You got to have the right people to do the job. So that's important.
Well, selective service was saved by one vote in 1939. Everyone
I
said
know.
that again.
Yeah, that says it. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.